Alright, this time we're going to go through the multiple shifts of the supply and demand curve to see what happens to our overall market equilibrium, market price, market quantity. And again, remember that term market equilibrium, that's where the market wants to be. So again, we're going to start all these out the same way we just did the other shifts of the supply and the demand curve individually. We have our demand curve 1, supply curve 1. And this is very important to make sure we label these curves with the multiple shifts as well, all right? Because now we're going to have two curves shifting in different directions. We're going to have 4 points that are going to look like equilibrium points, but we have to figure out which one's the correct one. All right, so we have D1 and S1. We have our equilibrium point 1. We got price equilibrium and quantity equilibrium. So again, remember that equilibrium point, that's where the market wants to be. So as demand and supply shift, increase, decrease, the equilibrium point is going to work itself back to where the market wants to be under these new circumstances. Okay? So our first simultaneous shift is scenario says there's a demand increase and a supply decrease. Okay? So when there's an increase in demand, we see it shift to the right. So let's go ahead and draw that demand curve in and write D2. Now don't worry about that point yet. All right? If we only had one curve shifting, then yeah, that'd be our new point of equilibrium. But we have two curves shifting. So that's not going to be our new equilibrium point. We have to wait till both curves have shifted. And the second part says a decrease in supply. All right? So we have a decrease in supply, which is going to be a shift to the left. So this would be our S2. Now we can go ahead and make our new point. All right, our new point of equilibrium where S2 and D2 match up. All right, so this is our E2 equilibrium point. So now we have to see what happens to price and quantity. Now this gets a little tricky, all right, because when you draw two shifts, one of the variables, either the price or the quantity change, is going to be unknown. All right, it's going to be so close that you might not be able to tell. So it really kind of depends on how you draw this. All right, so if you draw it up, one's going to see a drastic change, the other one, it's going to be pretty close or match up perfect, okay? So when we see this, I can see a clear increase in the price of this equilibrium point. All right, so go ahead and tell us that our price went up. Now quantity, that's the one, that's the variable that's pretty close. It's either right on, or the way you draw it up might just be slightly to the left, slightly to the right. That's fine. All right, but we know that that's going to be our question mark. So go ahead and put a question mark. That's the unknown. Economists, I believe they use the term unambiguous. All right, it's just unknown. We don't know what's going to happen to quantity when this particular situation takes place. Okay, so let's do the second one here. Another simultaneous shift. Again, we got our demand curve 1, supply curve 1. Equilibrium 1, price, and quantity. Okay? This time we see it's going to be a demand decrease, so it's going to shift to the left. This is D2. Now again, remember, we got two curves shifting. That's not our equilibrium point. We got to wait till we get both of them done. A supply increase. Now it's going to shift to the right. S2. And now go ahead and find that new point of equilibrium. Okay, so we have E2. This is our change in price. And again, we can see that price is obviously the one that's noticeably changing. All right, so our price, after this shift took place, our price went down. And again, quantity is going to be lining up pretty close. We're not going to necessarily see that difference, that change in quantity. So we know that quantity is our unknown, all right? It's going to change, it might go up, it might go down. We're not really 100% sure which direction it's going to go, okay? So that's the first two. Let's go ahead and make sure you have that down. If you have to pause it to write down all the shifts and just kind of double check what you put down in your notes there to make sure you're good, go ahead and pause the video, and then once you have it down, go ahead and continue playing. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and slide up the sheet on the overhead so you can do the last two. And then we'll work on those worksheets that follow in class together. Alright, so our last two simultaneous shifts. Again, I know this is repetitive, but we just start off the same way. And I'm having you guys draw these out, all of them, so that you really kind of just get comfortable drawing your supply and demand curves. So we have demand 1, S1, and our point in the middle is our equilibrium point. We got price equilibrium, or P1, and Q1. Okay? I put Q1 and P1 out here just so we know that's our first point of price and equilibrium and quantity equilibrium. So if you see these on a different source, a lot of times they'll have PE and QE. But I decided just to do this to make it a little bit more understanding of it. Alright, so in this scenario we have demand and supply both increase. Okay? So overall demand goes up. So that's our new demand curve. Increase is a shift to the right. There's also an increase in supply, which is also a shift to the right. Again, we know that when we have both curves shifting, one of those price or quantity are going to be the unknown. So we should see one that's pretty drastically noticeable. Okay, so D2 and S2, find where those two intersect. That's our new equilibrium point. Let's go ahead and bring our lines down to quantity and over to price. And now I can see right away there's a noticeable change in quantity, and that's an increase in quantity because it goes to the right. So I got an increase in quantity, and I see that my price, my new price equilibrium, lines up pretty close to the original. So price would be our unknown in this scenario. Not really sure what will happen to price in this scenario. If as a market, as a society, we're demanding more of the product, and at the same time we're demanding more, the producers supply more to the market. So if those both happen at the same time, we know there's going to be more out there for sale and for us to buy, or demanding it, but prices might just stay the same. They may not necessarily go up or down. Okay? And the last one. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill this in. D1, S1. We have our equilibrium point, price 1, and Q1. Okay, so simultaneous shift, this time demand and supply are both decreasing. So at the same time that you and I as consumers are demanding less of the product, the producers are saying, well, we're going to supply less of that product to the market. So let's see what happens to the quantity price, or the equilibrium price and quantity in that scenario. Okay, so demand curve is going to decrease. It's going to shift to the left. So here we got D2. And our supply curve is also going to decrease, which is a shift to the left. So we have S2. Okay? Again, find where D2 and S2 line up. This is our new point of equilibrium. E2. Alright, so again, we got to just figure out which one is noticeable, and then the other one will be our unknown. So right away, I see my quantity change is noticeable. There was a decrease in the quantity demanded and supply for our equilibrium. So quantity went down, and even though my price point doesn't necessarily line up perfect, we can see that that change is so slight and small that that will be our unknown. Okay? Again, when we do the double shifts, just remember there's going to be a variable that's unknown, a change that's unknown. You have to figure out which one it is. One of them is going to be noticeable. Alright, so in this case quantity is very noticeable, the change in quantity is noticeable. So I know that the price change is going to be the unknown. Even though when you draw it up, it might not always look that way. Okay? So that's it on our shifts of the supply and the demand curves. What we'll do now is we'll go through those worksheets in class, applying this information to some real scenarios.